We covered a few examples of attacks against wireless LAN infrastructure in the previous lesson. We also cover a quick example on how to perform a deauthentication attack against a wireless client. However, there's a whole bunch of other attacks that can be performed against a wireless client. So let's go over a few examples. I briefly mentioned a platform that has been used by many pen testers in the industry to attack wireless infrastructure devices and wireless clients, right? That platform is the Pineapple. I will use this platform and also a series of tools that can also be integrated with the Pineapple to perform attacks against wireless clients. First, let me give you a brief overview of the Pineapple infrastructure, right? So to set up the Pineapple is fairly simple. You can follow the steps that are documented by Hack5, which are the folks behind the Pineapple, the ones that created the Pineapple, in their GitHub wiki, right? And I'm showing the link to that wiki here in the screen. Now, I'm going to be very brief on the setup steps because they have created a very detailed and easy to follow documentation in this website. But in essence, the steps are pretty simple. First, you download the latest firmware for the Pineapple. It is actually fairly important that you always run the latest firmware since they're actually adding more features and also correcting several bugs, right? So just like any other software, right? Then you connect the Pineapple to your laptop or to your desktop system and then browse to the Wi-Fi Pineapple web interface. You can actually follow the on-screen instructions to complete the firmware flashing process and the initial setup, right? It's extremely simple. The cool thing about the Pineapple is that you can use it as a wireless adapter and also launch many attacks, and you don't even have to worry about the many different incompatibility issues that I mentioned earlier in this course with other wireless adapters, right? So that's one of the major benefits of the Pineapple. Now, as you can see, they have actually several easy examples on how to perform the initial setup depending on your operating system, and even they actually have some fairly good step-by-step videos or step-by-step initial configuration instructions that will allow you to initially set up the Pineapple. So I'm not going to reinvent the wheel here, and I'm going to concentrate on the actual attacks and tools that are available, right? The first functionality that I want to cover is the ability to do a reconnaissance or recon and monitoring features, right? So whenever you log into the web interface, you navigate to the recon area or to the recon tab, and there you can monitor channels for both beacons and the data activity, right? So the recon functionality allows you to see all available SSIDs and wireless access points with their respective clients, right? So the cool thing is you can quickly identify potential targets and immediately take action on them, right? So you can also accelerate, a lot of the process you actually do manually with other tools like, AirCrack and some others that I mentioned earlier in this course. Now, if a client is actually associated to an access point but idle, it may actually not appear in the list, right? So the increasing the actual scan duration from the drop-down menu allows you to, to sniff more potential traffic on each channel. Now the SSID, the MAC, the security, channel, and signal of access points are also displayed in the table view, right? Now clients are listed as MAC address only. Clicking on the menu button next to the MAC address, it actually shows a menu providing different options and different buttons to add or remove the MAC address from the Pineapple or the Pine AP filter, and also enable the Pine AP tracking feature as well. You can also use things like the deauth function, which actually sends multiple deauthentication frames to the target client. And we're actually going to be covering a few scenarios on where we're actually going to be using this functionality. You can also check the continuous box to enable an ongoing scan in the, the Recon section of the Pineapple. So let's go over, some of the client filtering capabilities, right? So now in deny mode, clients with the MAC address listed in the client filter will not be able to connect to the Wi-Fi Pineapple. So if you click on allow mode, only clients with MAC addresses listed in the client filter will be able to connect. So when performing a pen test or an audit, it is actually best to use the allow mode to ensure that only clients within the scope of the engagement are targeted. Client MAC addresses and SSIDs may also be added from many buttons associated with their respective listing in the Recon or the client views. Now let's go over SSID filtering, right? So in deny mode, in SSID filtering, clients will not be able to associate with the Wi-Fi pineapple if they're actually attempting to connect to an SSID, listed in that filter, right? So in allow mode, then clients will only be able to associate with the Wi-Fi pineapple in the SSID they're actually attempting to connect, and that is actually listed in the filter, right? SSIDs also may be added to the filter from the menu buttons associated with their respective listings in Recon. Now, whenever you click on the Pine AP option, you can use a modular rogue access point suite that allows you to connect clients by thoroughly mimicking their preferred network. So for example, whenever you actually select or connect to, let's say, a hotel Wi-Fi or your home Wi-Fi or free internet, in a coffee shop, basically you can actually monitor for clients that are actually trying to connect to those quote unquote preferred networks or safe networks, and then allow them to actually associate to you, right? So impersonate those networks, right? And we'll cover that in a few minutes. Now, if you select the allow associations, wireless clients will be allowed to associate to the Wi-Fi pineapple through any requested SSID. This feature also works in conjunction with the client and SSID filtering, right? So if you disable it, clients will not be allowed to associate at all in the pineapple. Now, whenever you enable log probes, the wireless client probe request will be logged in the pineapple, and this feature provides you with information for then do further analysis from the login view. Now, the log associations option allows you to log all client associations. Now, let's talk about the Pine AP daemon, right? So it actually must be enabled in order for you to use the beacon response, capture SSIDs to the pool, and also broadcast SSID pool features, right? So the Pine AP daemon will coordinate the appropriate actions based on the source and the target MAC settings, and also the beacon response and SSID broadcast intervals, right? So you can also capture SSIDs to pool. So whenever you enable this, the sniffer will actually save the SSID data of a capture probe request to the SSID pool of the pineapple. Now, most wireless devices that are not associated to a wireless router or to an AP try to connect to wireless networks that are safe. And like I mentioned before, if you actually are connected to a free Wi-Fi provider in a restaurant or a coffee shop or a hotel, your mobile device or your laptop may be trying to connect to the same SSID. If the pineapple sees that request, it can then impersonate the network, and your wireless device may connect to it without you even knowing, right? So if you give the victim access to the internet, you can then basically capture all their traffic and then even perform more sophisticated man-in-the-middle attacks, right? Even play with things like SSL and do SSL strip attacks. Now, if you enable broadcast SSID pool, the SSID pool will be broadcast as beacons using the source MAC and target MAC settings in the interval that you actually specified. The tracking feature will continuously scan for specified clients by MAC addresses and execute a customizable tracking script. This feature requires log probes and or log association features on the pineapple or the Pine AP to be enabled. Also, clients may be added to the client tracking list by using the Pine AP tracking add MAC button from the associated MAC address within the client views or the Recon view, right? So there's several options that you can actually do that to allow client tracking. Now, the pineapple is extremely modular, right? So in addition to the system modules that are actually included by default in the pineapple, things like Recon clients and the Pine AP, as I mentioned before, the Wi-Fi pineapple also supports community-developed modules. These modules extend functionality by using the Wi-Fi pineapple API. And as you can see here, there are many different modules available and many different contributors that actually have added modules for different types of attacks or different type of functionality. I already have several of these modules installed in my Pineapple, right? So for example, the DWAL module is actually used to display URLs, cookies, and even post data, and actually even images from the clients that actually have connected to your Pineapple. So then you can actually see, one, where they're going to the internet, and even what they're actually seeing, right? Even the images that actually are rendered in a specific web page. Now the DAuth here is the deauthentication attack module, and the evil portal is a captive portal that you can actually configure to obtain wireless client passwords. Now you can fool, a user to probably log into, let's say Facebook or Google or their bank or any other service, right? So the sky is actually the limit here, right? So you can actually construct a captive portal and say, hey, you have free internet access if you log into your Facebook account, and once they actually enter their Facebook credentials, of course, you can actually, retain them and then use it for other purposes, right? Now, you can do other things like perform man-in-the-middle SSL attacks and even interact with the tools like Meterpreter, right? Now, you can also do many other things like submit hash and WPA handshake to other online hash sites like hashcrack.com. You can even dump traffic on the network using TCP dump. You can forge replies to arbitrary DNS queries using DNS spoof. And you can also use the portal auth, which is actually another captive portal cloner. And in this case, actually, it clones another captive portal. And also, you can actually do from there payload distribution as well. Now, of course, if we go over all these attacks and all these modules, we'll be here for days. But let me actually show you very quickly how easy it is to, one, deauth a client, so deauthenticate a client, and in this case from the corporate network, a wireless network, which is a corp-net, and then start listening to everything that the client is actually doing over the wireless network. Let's take a look at the CorpNet SSID in the Recon area. I'm going to enable profiling for the corp-net SSID, and I'm also adding the SSID to the PineAP pool, right? I'm also adding that to the PineAP filter, so you'll be able to actually, impersonate that wireless network. Now, let's click on one of the associated clients, right? I'm also adding the client to the PineAP filter and also to the tracking feature. From the same screen, you can just send a deauthentication packet or many of them to actually perform a deauthentication attack and force that client to associate to your Pineapple. Here I actually have my iPad, which is connected to the corp-net SSID. And whenever I actually go back to the Pineapple and click on that client, I can select to send deauthentication messages, right? So deauthentication attempts, either one or many. Then I click on the deauth button to deauthenticate the client. So if I go back to my iPad, sure enough, I'm now connected to the Pineapple instead of the corporate network, right? So now let me browse to CNN.com, right? So just as an example, and let's go back to the Pineapple and let's use the DWAL module, right, to see what's actually going on. And this module, again, allows you to actually capture the client's traffic, as I mentioned earlier in the lesson. And there you go. You can see the URLs that the client is visiting. There, a lot of things in here that actually are happening. CNN.com has tons of advertisements and content from other places, out there in the internet, and you can actually see all these URLs in here, right? So you can even see the images that are present on that site, and too funny that actually you can even see pictures of Trump in here, right? So, but at any rate, you can actually see many different things. You can see the website cookies. You can even see or use that information to carry out several other attacks, And as you can see here, this is actually a pretty powerful tool with tons of different attacks and modules, right? So now one last thing that I want to completely repeat. I know that I'm being pretty repetitive through this course, but whenever you perform this type of testing for a client or for your organization, make sure that you're targeting only the clients and the wireless networks that are in scope. And make sure that before you start the pen testing, that you agree with your client or with the company on what are the clients and the wireless access points that are in scope, or the SSIDs, right? I will continue to remind you of things like this throughout the course because it's actually very important. There's a lot of legality if you actually go out of scope and you actually start sniffing traffic for, things that are actually not in scope.